Hello, we're back. Welcome to Access. I'm Ken.
I'm Nicole.
And today we're going to talk about First Kings. I think Nicole is going to tell us about Elvis or Michael Jackson.
No, not those kings.
Okay.
We're going to talk
Billie
about...
Jean? King?
Nope,
Other
no
kings.
Bobby Riggs either.
Okay.
No, we're going to talk about the kings from the Bible.
Okay. And Nicole has a generous note on authorship
I do.
that's already impressed me.
And it's only like this long. It's great.
She's got notes for it. Watch out.
This is for all 4 books, by the way. So we're continuing on in the Deuteronomistic tradition, as we have been for books now.
Yes.
They wrote a lot.
We can finally pronounce Deuteronomistic.
I know,
We've been doing
after
it so much.
practice. And this comes at the very end of towards the end of the Deuteronomistic tradition, where there were probably versions written out during the 8th and 7th centuries before the Common Era, like the other books. But the final version that we get was actually written in the 6th century, during the exile period, which comes at the very end of these books. The other interesting thing about First Kings is that First and Second Kings were originally written as one book, much like how First and Second Samuel originally one book. But when it was translated into Greek, it got split into 2 books. And they did this...
Why?
It's easier to carry.
Okay. Smaller scroll.
It's easy, yeah. When you got scrolls, you got to make divisions at some points.
It's like the iPod Mini.
It really
First
is.
Kings Mini.
Mm-hmm. And so they split it into 2 books, and it really flows seamlessly from First Kings into Second Kings, and that's how they know it's really one book. And in the Hebrew tradition, it continued to be one book until the Middle Ages, when it was split into 2 through influence of Christians to Jews.
Nicole is a slight fan of the Middle Ages.
I'm a slight fan.
Which I'm impressed it hasn't come out much before this, actually.
You know, I keep it pretty much under lock and key.
Kind of under wraps.
Have you heard any sermons about the Middle Ages?
You know, I haven't yet.
No. Any adult ed class about the Middle Ages?
You did Reformation last week.
I did. It was great. Getting within 500 years of what I like.
All right. Well, to go back to First Kings to talk about what's going on in this book, as well as then in Second Kings, we kind of like with David last time, where we had the rise of David and then the fall, the crash and fall of David. We have really the final rise of the Hebrew kingdom, the Israelite kingdom, and then the very, very sad crash and fragmentation of that. So, in First Kings, we hand over the kingdom to Solomon. Solomon is the 3rd great king, the son of David. And under Solomon, the kingdom expands. We have archaeological background to support this as well. And the most important building is built at this time. It is the
temple.
A note on the word temple. Temple is the center of Jewish faith and life at this point, and sacrifice is at the heart of that. This is not a religion that makes a whole lot of sense to people in a modern era, Jewish or Christian or any otherwise. Religion, as we have come to know it, has a lot to do with gathering together and hearing texts read and explicated and praying together. And religion at this point has much to do with blood sacrifice, and which is a very unusual thing for us.
Yeah, that's probably the thing that distinguishes it mostly from us, but there's a lot of other parts of religion that are the same.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
And we'll really see that with the Restoration.
Yes. Very much
When we
so.
get out of the exile into the Restoration, that's when worship begins to look like what we're familiar with. Well, this is a pet peeve of mine. Pet peeve where, especially in Texas where I grew up, there are these little things, little little places all over the place, and they will call them tabernacles, and they will call them temples. Now, what's annoying about a tabernacle is that a tabernacle is a tent that moves. It is not a building with a foundation.
No.
You're not allowed to call your building a tabernacle if it has a foundation. Are you with me?
We're with you.
Second is the temple. People call their places temples. That also drives me nuts, unless you are doing animal sacrifice, and unless there's one of you and you're in Jerusalem.
And there's a Holy of Holies in there
Exactly.
that no one can go into, except for the priest once a year to make a big offering.
And for us, for you at home, the reason why this is a big deal is that when there is one temple, and God is in God's holy temple, and there's this sense that nothing can touch us, and this is the center of faith and life, what happens when that temple is destroyed? That is one of the most shocking cataclysms that could possibly happen to your faith, because it can't happen, but it does at the end of 2 Kings. So we have the building of the temple in 1 Kings, and then finally the destruction of the first temple at the end. I think that's good for that. Themes. You know, I'm going with it's kind of an American theme in my view in 2 Kings, where beware of getting everything that you ask for. Because you know what happens when kids get everything that they want.
They become spoiled.
They do.
They become like the kids in Willy Wonka.
Veruca Salt. And which one was your favorite to hate?
Ooh, I really enjoyed hating Veruca Salt because
she was the nasty.
Well, when she's like, "What's a snozzberry?"
That's really good.
Thanks, I've worked on it for years.
Yeah, all right.
But I also like Violet Beauregard because she turned into a big fat blueberry, and they had to squeeze her, and then roll her out. It was hilarious.
I'm just, wow.
And creepy at the same time.
Well, we got to do the Oompa Loompa.
I am too.
So yeah, they.
So it's like a whole kingdom full of Veruca Salt and Augustus Gloops and Violet Beauregard and Mike TV. That's all of them.
Yeah, well, because if you think about where Palestine is at this point, it's in the middle of these amazing trade routes, and they become incredibly wealthy. The kingdom becomes big and bloated. Solomon, I don't know how many wives he winds up with. People are worshiping every manner of God you can imagine in the high places.
Because it's the center of trade routes, they get a lot of foreigners come in, and they
foreigners.
And they bring with them their own cultural practices. And so, I think it's really about the dangers of capitalism.
You know, with no, that I think there's something to that, Nicole.
Yes.
Where we lose our moorings, we lose our bearings, and as a people, this is 2009. And we have watched in America, we watched Bernie Madoff yesterday be sentenced to 150 years in jail because he abused a system like this. And I think as we read about these kings and the fall of this kingdom and the exploitation of wealth and the poor people, it's something that we can look at and identify with.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd say too is the more things change, the more they stay the same. When the kingdom divides and you get Rehoboam in the south and you get Jeroboam in the north, those are the two kingdoms that split off, Israel and Judah. Jeroboam establishes, what is it? 2 golden calves.
Ken, that sounds familiar.
Doesn't it though? You know, golden calves was not a good idea the first time around, and it wasn't a particularly good one the second. But part of what the writers are trying to show us is that the mistakes of the past, you know, continue to come around, and are seen again. So no matter how things change, they always stay.